Now, for this week, I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about something that I'm sure we've all had a complex relationship with, and that is The Simpsons. And maybe it's not with literally all of you, but I'm sure that with some of you watching, you've probably had a moment where you've had a little phase where you were obsessed with The Simpsons. You love watching every single episode. You love knowing all the residents of Springfield. You love waiting every Sunday for Fox to release the brand new episode and all that kind of stuff. Like, there was a time when you would consider yourself a major fan of The Simpsons. I know I've had my period, maybe you've had your period too, or maybe you're still on your period on that. So that is something that people can relate to, is a moment where we were once really big on enjoying The Simpsons. And it is actually very interesting to mention about it right now because, as you've probably heard, there was actually a recent controversy that's going on that there are some people that have some strong emotions about this particular subject. And that is actually regarding Apu Nahasapeemapetilon. Or I think that's how you say your... that's how you say your name. Say his name, right? That's how you say it? Apu Nahasapeemapetilon. Okay, yeah, I got it. I got it right. So yeah, as you guys know, the owner of the Quickie Mart recently got into major controversy about how some people view that he might be considered a negative stereotype towards Indian people or people of Indian or South Asian descent. People feel that it is a little bit insulting in a way. And this was really highlighted in a recent documentary that came out a few months ago, which is called The Problem with Apu, which was actually created by filmmaker and comedian Kondabolu. So he pretty much decided to create that documentary, and from there to go and discuss about the character of Apu and how nowadays he is viewed a little bit as a stereotype, just walking around being a goofball, making Indian people look bad, and all that kind of stuff. However, just recently, it looks like The Simpsons finally addressed the issue of the problem with Apu. So pretty much they finally called out about the situation regarding Apu and what they could do with it. So apparently, I'm just going to go and read you my little source here through Deadline. It states, on Sunday's episode, Marge Simpson reads a book to daughter Lisa, prompting Lisa to remark the cisgender girl heroine is already evolved. Doesn't really have an emotional journey to complete, leaving the book with no point. In which Marge would say, well, what am I supposed to do? And Lisa would respond by saying,
it's hard to say. Something that started decades ago and was applauded and inoffensive is now politically incorrect. What can you do?
And which Marge would respond by saying, well, some things will be dealt with at a later date. And Lisa would say, if at all. And from there, I would just like to point out and would like to apologize to everyone if I did a really crappy Marge impression. I practiced a little bit, I swear. I thought I could nail it, but no, it didn't come out right this time. I don't know why. I'll try better next time. I guess Marge would say it best. Some things will be dealt with at a later date. Oh my god, okay. Anyways, with all that said, now, Hari Kondabolu, of course, he was contacted by many journalists over the fact that The Simpsons actually did address the issue. But Hari was not pleased. He was pissed. He went on a Twitter tirade, going around making angry tweets, criticizing every little aspect about that little response. And he would go and say, to start things off, to the journalists who have asked me for a public statement about last night's episode of The Simpsons, I just want to say congratulations to The Simpsons for being talked about and being seen as relevant again. And from there, like I said before, he would just go and point out all the things that he has an issue with what Lisa said, and even some of the small things like how the picture of Apu would say, "Don't have a cow." Get it? Because he's Hindu, and Hindus love cows more so than their wives. But I think the big thing that what Hari actually stated would actually be his last tweet regarding this whole thing. And he actually said, "In the problem with Apu, I used Apu and The Simpsons as an entry point into a larger conversation about the representation of marginalized groups and why this is important. The Simpsons' response tonight is not a jab at me, but what many of us consider progress." And that's overall the feeling that he has, is that from there, he feels like the way The Simpsons responded is that they might as well just say that they don't care. That really, they look at the issue about The Simpsons, they look at the issue with Apu, and they just really don't give a crap. They look at the issue and they're just going, eh. And ironically, there are even some people that would actually say that The Simpsons has actually become Principal Skinner when he would say the famous line,
"Am I so out of touch?" No, it's the children who are wrong.
And when I see this going around, I do understand why Hari is actually pissed off about this. I do understand the anger that Hari has, where The Simpsons would just tell him that they don't care what he thinks, they don't care if they have an issue at all. Because if you don't understand where Hari is going with this, or how Hari is currently feeling about how The Simpsons address this situation, just imagine this. Okay, so imagine if you have a broken toilet, and that toilet is like really busted. It is impossible to flush, it is leaking, and like even like the old pee and the crap is starting to come out of it. Like really, it's a very it's a toilet that's not only not working, but it's causing a lot of problems, and it's starting to flood a little bit in the bathroom. So, in order to solve this problem, you gotta go and call a plumber. You gotta call the plumber in order to go fix this situation immediately, because there really is a big issue with that toilet. So the plumber comes in, and the plumber checks out in the bathroom. He sees the leak is going around everywhere. He sees that, you know, there's some toilet water, there's a bit of pee, there's a bit of poo going around, all around the bathroom, and the toilet, like, it's busted up, it can't flush, and it's leaking, and all that kind of stuff. Now, the plumber just looks around, he looks at you, and he would say, "Yeah, you know what, what can you do? I mean, I guess some things will be dealt with at a later date, if, at all." And from there, he would walk out, leaving you with a busted toilet, nothing is solved, and you have to be left there cleaning up all the crap. That's basically the current situation that Hari is feeling, because the response that The Simpsons did, yeah, it really is kind of a jab at what they're fighting for and what they're trying to address. Like, The Simpsons is not owning up to what they're currently doing wrong and why some of the things that they're doing doesn't seem okay. In a way, funny enough, it's a lot like the last story that I talked about in my previous episode of the animation podcast with Channel Awesome, where they responded to the whole controversy with, "Oh, I regret that you feel that way." And from there, like, the controversy really exploded, and Channel Awesome lost a whole bunch of subscribers and contributors. Which reminds me, I want to know a little bit of an update. I heard they actually got a brand new response, so let me just check on what's going on. Did they make a new response? Just want to see how things are going there. Holy crap, tabarnak! Oh boy, well, well, I guess it was fun while it lasted with Channel Awesome, right? Okay, well, okay, anyways, Let's forget about Channel Awesome. At this point, they might be gone soon if they continue like this. But anyways, yeah, going back into the Simpsons scenario, yeah, I do understand why Hari is actually mad about this situation and why people would actually be mad about the Simpsons, because they're not owning up to what they're currently doing wrong, that they're not really advancing the character of Apu to become more than just a negative stereotype, and how people are viewing Apu as a negative stereotype that has real world consequences to people with South Asian descent. So yeah, like it is a bit. So yeah, honestly, I do see this as a bit of a dick move for The Simpsons to actually go and respond in that way, to basically say that they regret that Hari felt that way. But I will say, though, that, of course, while there are a lot of people that are angry at The Simpsons, there are, of course, plenty of others that would make counter-arguments about this whole case right here, that would make counter-arguments against the problems with Apu. And there are some videos out there are some discussions about people saying that really the whole thing with the problem with Apu is a little bit ridiculous, and it does seem a bit far-fetched to go and attack like a freaking cartoon character on a TV show like The Simpsons in order to fight for representation of Indian people. And there are some of them that honestly I don't feel like their opinions matter, that I wouldn't value their opinions, because there are a lot of people out there that they would say like, The Simpsons triggered SJW, you know, like you got some people who would react that way. But again, I don't value their opinion. Honestly, their thoughts are kind of worthless in that scenario, because for me, I feel like those kinds of people right there, they're not doing that to defend The Simpsons. They're not doing that to defend Apu or anything like that. Those people just want to find an additional excuse to go and attack people that they would go and label as social justice warriors. So really, they're just doing it to attack others, and I wouldn't be surprised if those people doing that, they haven't seen an episode of The Simpsons in years. However, I have actually found an intellectual counter response to the whole problem with Apu thing. And I actually found this on an article on CBC, which was done by Rajiv Satyal, who is actually a good friend of Hari Kondabolu. Like, he actually did go and do some tours with him, and like, he knows Hari personally, and he offered a bit of an argument, a critique about the problem with Apu. And it is honestly a very fascinating read, and apparently the article on the CBC actually even states that there is a longer version on Medium. So this is something that I highly recommend that you check it out. And the arguments that he would say, that like the big thing that he thinks about the whole documentary about the problem with Apu is that he says that, here's what I think. This documentary is well done, and it is driven by a noble pursuit of truth and justice, but it puts forth an argument that will simply make a lot of people roll their eyes. When that happens, we actually take the progressive movement backwards. And from there, he would discuss about many different arguments about not only the things that he would say in the documentary itself, but also related to the character of Apu within The Simpsons. He would start off by talking about the aspect of, like, the Indian accent seems a little bit racist, but he would counter that by saying that, well, the Indian accent is actually very funny for a lot of people. Not just for white people, but also for Indian people. Like, when he would go on tours and do stand-up bits in India, they would love it when they would do the Indian accent. So that's one major thing that they would go and discuss. Like, he would say, like, the Indian accent sounds funny in the same way the German accent sounds evil. It just does. It's like when smart people finally admit he finds farts funny. There's no way a comedian doesn't understand this concept. And from there, he would also continue and make a big argument, and I think this is really the strongest thing that he actually said to counter the problem with Apu, is actually the fact that in order to go and try to do something better for people of South Asian descent is that you need to bring in more people, you need to bring in more Indians to be prominent stars and to show that they are regular people like white people and African Americans and Asians and all those guys. Like they would show like that they are normal people and that they're not like Apu. And he actually stated, if the thrust of an argument is that there were no prominent Indians in America to counter Apu's depiction at the time he was conceived, well, take a look at all the prominent South Asian voices included in this documentary. You got Aziz Ansari, Russell Peters, Azif Mandiv, Sakina Jaffe, and more. Indians are killing it in Hollywood. The very fact that we have so many famous and successful Indians to rebuke the whole concept of Apu proves the point that the way to victory is to drown him out. If the best revenge is living well, as the expression goes, then we're clearly winning. And really, that's the one thing that he's trying to say, is to go, and if you want to try to counter the depiction that Apu is trying to show in The Simpsons, then try to celebrate the Indian actors and actresses and the Indian filmmakers, of course, that are really big in Hollywood and are having very successful careers. To go and sell, like bring out more positive to drain out the negative. And continuing on, he also made an argument that one thing that is not really right for them to go and do is actually to go and target Hank Azaria, because, yeah, at first glance, it does seem like a very bad idea for a white person to go and do the Indian accent. It seems a little bit racist in a way. Now, I do understand, but the thing is, with Hank Azaria, is that he is technically the messenger. That if you want to go and attack somebody for the depiction of how Apu is as a stereotype to South Asians and stuff like that, then you go after the writers, the people that would craft Apu. Hank Azaria, he's just a messenger. He's just there to deliver the performance of Apu. So it's not necessarily the correct target to go after. And from there, he would also make discussions about how Apu is actually a great character. How there's a lot more to Apu than just being a negative stereotype. And he would even say, but here's the other thing. Apu already is a three-dimensional character. Yes, there are cheap shots at his expense and lame lines in his dialogue, but Apu also cracks intelligent jokes, fights against stereotypes, and experiences a journey across the emotional spectrum. And yeah, there are plenty of different moments that I remember even when I would watch The Simpsons, where there are memorable moments with Apu that is more so than just being an Indian stereotype, where you do see a lot more of who Apu is, like in terms of his background, his relationship with Springfield, and his relationship with the people in Springfield, and all that kind of stuff, that they really did play around with Apu. And the article would even end off by saying that Apu might have been one of the few Indian characters on television more than a quarter century ago, but as the documentary itself points out, there's now an Indian on practically every successful contemporary show. That's incredible progress, something of which to rejoice. Let's not play the victim, let's celebrate. So, again, I think the big thing that he's trying, like one of the strongest arguments that Rajiv is trying to say in this is the fact that we should be happy that we have totally evolved from what Apu was back in the early 90s to how we are now, showing that there are plenty of popular Indian stars and there are plenty of people of Indian descent that would be prominently displayed in some of the biggest shows that we have seen right now. So overall, I definitely do see both sides of the argument in this situation. Yes, I do understand about how Hari Kondabolu would be pissed off at how The Simpsons would just toss away the documentary and what he is trying to fight for. And yeah, like as Rajiv said, that the documentary itself is driven by a noble pursuit of truth and justice. And it really is a bit of a dick and unprofessional move of The Simpsons to just ignore what they're trying to say instead of admitting their own flaws that they'll see if they can go and improve upon Apu. But then again, I do understand how people would be a bit turned off with the way that Hari would try to approach this situation, that he would be pretty aggressive with the way that he's going after the Simpsons and the portrayal of Apu, making it a bigger situation that maybe it probably is. But I think the best way that I can think of in order to conclude all this is that I do have a little bit of a question regarding everything, the whole scenario about what's going on with the Simpsons and Apu and Hari Kondabolu and all that kind of stuff. If there's one big question to really go and summarize all this up, why the fridge are they still airing more episodes of The Simpsons? I mean, the show is almost 30 years old. I mean, can't the thing just let go? Can't we just move on from The Simpsons and all that kind of stuff? Seriously, why the fridge are they still making more episodes?